Sure. So, God's Glory and Story was an initiative started off as a brainstorm discussion between Alok and me. The whole idea behind God's Glory and Story was to kind of get a better idea in terms of how we navigate this crisis, right? All of us have been trying to figure out uh, what to make of COVID. And Praveer and me both got speaking about this. And we felt one of the best ways to kind of get a grip on this is to get access to people who actually are the rule makers as far as their industries are concerned. So we thought of 13 different domains, and for each of these domains, we got people who are close to policy making, who are close to defining the rules for the industry. Because once we do that, then one has a much better grip in terms of how COVID is affecting that particular industry. So that's how we got started. One more thing which we also realized while formatting is that in addition to knowledge, a lot of people really want hope and support. Okay, COVID has affected us in a lot of ways, and so along with God's Glory and Story, which is our weekly interview sessions, we also decided to format something called COVID Tales. COVID Tales are basically peer-to-peer inspiration stories. So quite honestly, who do we go to when we are in trouble, right? We call our friends and we get inspiration from how they are facing it. We identify with their stories. So as part of COVID Tales, we analyzed 13 different ways in which COVID has affected our lives, right from the financial crunch, right from some people losing jobs, right from certain industries facing such a bad downturn that business is getting shut, our parents, senior citizens being locked inside homes, and as a result of which, they're completely cooped up. Families being locked inside homes, husband, wives, earlier used to go to work but are now locked inside their own homes. Students facing an uncertain future. So 13 different ways in which COVID has affected us. And these are stories of regular people and how they're coping with the crisis. COVID Tales will also be released from Tuesday 2020 on our social media platforms as soon as a video link for our sessions go live. But well, I think meanwhile, Praveer has managed to get connectivity and we'll obviously make space for him. The whole objective behind setting the session in this particular format was to kind of give you access to people who are industry leaders, right? And we started off with a sector that's very close to us. It's the power sector. All of us have experienced that there was no power outages in this entire COVID period. And who better to have to represent that sector than the MD and CEO of a company that's one of the largest power companies in the country. So we welcome Praveer Sinha, MD and CEO of Tata Power. And we'll soon start with the question answers, but I'll just lay down certain ground rules in terms of how we're setting this up. So we will start off with Alok and me asking questions to Praveer for the first half an hour. In between, there'll also be some polls that we'll throw at you. The purpose of these polls is to essentially also figure out where the audience sentiment is, or there are particular issues about a sector that are being discussed. The polls will give us an idea with respect to what are you people thinking about these issues. And then of course, same questions will be thrown to Praveer and Praveer will tell us what the actual industry view is, right? After 30 minutes, a lot of you have also asked questions to us when you all fill the registration forms. So after 30 minutes, we've handpicked certain questions from the audience itself. We'll also call out the members of the audience who are part of this session right now and what are their questions. And post that, we'll throw it open to all of you who I'm sure are keen and have been waiting to ask questions to Praveer, right? So without any further waiting, let me announce the session open and we will start a Q&A with Praveer. I think Alok will be ready with the first question. Yeah. Over to you, Alok.
I think we've not even introduced ourselves, so let's take a couple of minutes to introduce ourselves. So first of all, welcome everyone to the first episode of Guts, Glory and Story. And as Sangram said, it's a chat show where you will get views from the absolute top on the unfolding crisis that we're all in. And we wanted this to be a show with a difference. When we decided that we wanted to have conversations with people who have always been at the helm of shaping new rules. Remember, this is new future, new rules, right? Every session that we conduct, we thought we will unveil to our listeners opportunities and insights. And we wanted to begin with a theme, a confirmed lineup. That means we needed a set of 13 speakers, which we've got. And that's the reason why we call the season as So Show Must Go On. Now, Sangram was speaking to you. He's the CEO and MD of the Think Why Not group. He's an advertiser. He's a marketer who has run successful campaigns. Sangram, please smile. For authors like Amish Tripathi and Ashwin Sanghi. He's also a filmmaker. His film was screened at Cannes, and you should be seeing the film on the OTT very soon. So with that, Sangram, should I go over directly to Praveer now for my first question?
Introduce you, Alok. A lot of people would also be keen to know about you. So Alok is a serial CEO, investor, entrepreneur, and now an author. Alok has penned down his latest book, which is called Achieving Successful Outcomes, which is published by a global publishing house. And it's a strategy book in terms of how you look at businesses, industries, and strategy. So no better time for the book to actually come out than a time like this when everyone's grappling with strategy. So that's a bit about Alok. And with that, I think we can officially announce a session open. And Alok, up to you. We can start our conversation with Praveer.
Absolutely. So the viewers on this channel, I've been fortunate to know Praveer for a very long time. He was also my senior in the college. So Praveer, I know when you were just 7 or 8, you used to travel between India and Nepal, sometimes Delhi to Kathmandu, sometimes Patna to Kathmandu, and all by yourself as a child. And this was because your father was posted there. Now, did such instances from your childhood prepare you for life better? I mean, the intrepidity. Because let me begin by saying that when you take over a 150-year-old institution with some large history like Tata Power, for some of the normal people like us, it can be daunting. How did you manage, and what was that prepared you for such a momentous occasion? Praveer.
Thank you, Alok, and thank you, Sangram, for having me on your chat show, Guts, Glory, and Story. So mine is more about story, that how things work in the power sector. But you asked me a very, very important question, that how I grew up in my childhood, that I did, which of course was a very short travel that I used to do between Kathmandu and Patna. And I actually grew up in Patna and did my schooling over there. So let me tell you something about my schooling, my childhood. And it's something that has stayed with me as a foundation for whatever I have done in future and whatever I have done in my life. I stayed in a joint family in the early stages of my life. I also stayed in the hostel. And I had the privilege of staying with a lot of my relatives. And some of the value systems that I learned over there, typically of sharing and caring and empathy, and also adaptability. How do you adapt in different environments? How do you adapt with different relatives? How do you adapt in the hostel with different friends over there? What's the teamwork like? How do you work in a team? How do you also give space to people when you stay in a hostel or you stay in a joint family? There are a large number of people, but you still give space to people so that they can try their whatever is their skill set, whatever is their interest. So those are very, very important things that I learned. But I think important to those was also the desire of learning and the never say die spirit. When you stay with so many people, you know that you have people who will back you in difficult times. And I think that was the biggest learning, that you never say die. You always have hope and you always have the positive spirit of doing things. And I think when we look at Tata Power, it's a 120-year-old company. It started in 1905 when the construction started. Very difficult conditions. And how it kept on trying new things, how it kept on innovating, and the spirit of innovation, the spirit of trying and not getting deterred by difficulties, And I think that is also seen today when we have the global pandemic. We still find that our people have been able to continuously work and support the power sector in terms of supplying electricity to our consumers. So I think when you run a large organization, you need to believe in them, you need to give people the trust and the faith, and also you need to bring the positive spirit and the learning that comes along with that. And I think that's what has been the real learning for me in my life, in my school, from my family. And that's what I try to use in Tata Power.
That's great, Praveer. So coming down to the positive spirit, I think nowhere is this positive spirit needed than in a world like ours or in a time like this. And COVID has indeed affected all sectors. What would you say has been the impact of COVID on the power sector and Tata Power in particular? And how is Tata Power coping with this?
The power sector has huge challenge and huge responsibility. As a public utility, as an essential service, you have to be there always 24/7. You cannot take a break. You cannot say that I'm scared, I cannot go and work because of COVID. So you need to have that sort of responsibility when you are working in this sector. And like any other frontline workers, the people working in power sector have stood firmly and have supported the country, whether it is supplying electricity to hospitals or research centers or to the people who are in the police or in the paramilitary forces. They have always been there. And they have also ensured that all the people who work from home also get the supply, because if you do not have supply, you cannot work from home, you do not have the internet access. So I think they have done exceedingly well in these difficult times. Tata Power has also, wherever our operations are there, it's right across in the country. We have number of coal-based and hydro power plants. We have 11 of them. We have nearly 70 odd places where we have our renewable projects. We do distribution in Delhi, Mumbai, and now in Odisha. So all these places, our people have been there. Things have been difficult. In fact, last few days, there have been a lot of rains and cyclones which have come, but our people have always been geared up to attend to these challenges. So our business continuity plan, which is there, gets implemented immediately whenever a situation like this comes up. And I think the good thing is that we have fortunately been able to run our operations without any hiccups seamlessly. And we do hope that we will continue to serve our consumers even in such difficult times.
What has been the impact of demand on industrial and commercial power, and when do you see that coming back?
Well, when the lockdown was announced on 24th of March, the demand came down, and in the month of April, it was down by nearly 30% because all the industrial and commercial activity virtually came to a standstill. But subsequently, from May onwards, things have started picking up. Of course, there have been some partial lockdowns in between, but I find that in the last 15 days, it's about 3 to 5% lower than pre-COVID period. So I do expect that in the next 2 months, with more and more industrial activity and commercial activity picking up, we'll have the demand back to normal. And that's a good news for the country, because that means that our industrial and commercial production has started and people are back to doing their jobs.
Yeah, that's indeed reassuring.
So Praveer, you answered just now about industrial demand, and I think we would also like to understand more about the retail demand. But before I ask you the question, this is the first of our poll questions. So the way we will, one is a question will pop up on the screens of our viewers. We will give them 30 seconds to answer. We will publish the results immediately. And I will have a similar question for Praveer for his view. And we'd like to see how close are our viewers to what actually is happening. So the first question on the screen, Shweta, can you put it up? By what percentage do you think your domestic power consumption has gone up during COVID? 20%, 30%, 40%, or more than 50%. Remember, thanks to the work from home, ACs, dishwashers, vacuum cleaner, the works, there must have been a spate of cost increase, or at least demand increase. Are we getting any answers?
A lot. I think 65% people have voted so far. There are more answers coming in.
The questions vanished from my screen.
No, people are still voting. The trend seems to be that most people feel that it's gone up by 30 to 40%. So domestic power consumption has gone up by 30 to 40%. 32% people feel that it's gone up by 30%. 27% feel it's gone up by 40%, and 17% believe it's gone up by more than 50%.
Well, that's quite a big spread. But Praveer, since you have a much larger diaspora of retail customers, I think you'll have a far more accurate picture. So we would like to know from you, how has COVID dynamics affected power consumption? And which means that, you know, this has also changed the semantics of retail power. And probably going forward, this could be the future of living. I mean, is this defining enough that it becomes future of living? Praveer.
Absolutely right. The load pattern has changed, and we did see consumption in the retail sector going up by nearly 40 to 50%. Typically, in families, which large families, when you have more number of people staying in the house, that many more mobile phones, that many more computers, laptops, iPads, that many more air conditioners operating in the house. So wherever there were large families staying, we did see the consumption going up by 50%. Where there were less number of people, it of course went up by 10 to 20%. So I think what is important that we did realize that people are consuming. They were also not very conscious that they are consuming very high energy, and many a times when you consume more, you at the end of the month when you get the bill, you why our electricity bill has gone up. So that's one of the lessons that we learned, that how do we again empower people and tell them in advance, and not at the end of the month when after when they get the bill, they get the surprise or the challenge that such a high bill has come to them. So I think there are now technologies available, and some of those new technologies, the smart metering and some of the other ways in which you can collect the data and provide it to the consumers, that will be very, very helpful going forward, whereby the consumer can then have a control and check on the quantum of energy that they use.
And I think Tata Power is also at the forefront of a campaign for conservation of energy, right? To conserve energy.
Yeah.
It's a very large campaign you're on.
Yeah, absolutely. We run two campaigns. One is on through Club Energy, through school children in different parts of the country. We've got nearly 1,000 schools in which we tell the children that how important it is to conserve energy. And the second is we run a campaign with our large consumers because that's where it makes a large difference. So anyone who is more than 10 kilowatt consumers, industrial, commercial, we tell them now in advance that on real-time basis, they can get information as to how much is their consumption and how they can control. And you know, in typically domestic consumers, the retail consumers are in slabs, the tariff is in slabs. So we inform them in advance that if you consume on these lines, on these patterns, then you will cross this slab, and it's in your interest that you conserve. So a lot of automation technologies have come now, and that is now empowering the consumers that they will be in a better position to control the offtake of energy by them.
Praveer, during our discussions also, when we were talking about this, you told of a possibility that in the future, consumers can become power entrepreneurs. Societies can generate their own power. Houses can generate their own power. They can lend these power. That's one of the questions that we also ran in the promos. I think everyone's keen to know how does a consuming society or a consuming set of apartments actually become generators of power, and how can they become self-sufficient in terms of this opportunity?
Yeah, this is again one of the new solutions which have come, and typically everyone knew in the world that power is unidirectional. Large power plants, they supply to you, and that's it. You have no ability to generate yourself and give it back to the grid. But now with the type of disruption that has taken place in the power sector, and decentralized generation is becoming common, there is an opportunity for consumers to generate. So it can be either rooftop generation or land-based generation that they can do. And these generations, they can consume themselves as well as give it to the people in their community. So there is a transaction that can be done. Some of the experimentations are being done by us in a few locations, whereby we are trying to have a closed society where whatever is the generation you consume within the society, and there can be a transaction within the community where the excess capacity can be sold to the others in the community. So I think what the change is happening is the consumer is also becoming a producer of power, and the concept of prosumer is coming in. There are huge number of technology interventions which are happening to support this, whereby people can control the load in terms of when they can switch on their equipments, and also how much quantity they can use in different hours of the day, so that everyone does not peak their consumption at one time, and there is a much better balancing of load amongst the consumers. So I think going forward, this will become a reality. In fact, there are two great innovations that are happening. One, of course, is that how do you make societies self-sufficient in energy? So you will have in any gated community or any apartment complex, people where they can generate, and this can be generated not only on rooftop, but also land mounted. In fact, now vertical solar panels are coming, so you can put it in your balconies also, windows also. And you can therein generate and consume everything within the complex or within the building societies. And thereby you can become self-sufficient. In fact, the ideal situation that will be that you generate your own electricity, consume amongst yourself, you have enough to charge your electric vehicle, so you virtually are not dependent on anyone for your energy requirement in future.
And these sources are largely solar. I mean, the rooftop and this are largely solar, and then does it also go to a battery backup?
Yeah, these are largely solar. There would be a battery backup because all said and done, solar is intermittent power. It is only there for a few hours in a day. And battery backup will be very, very important for especially where you are doing heavily decentralized generation. But you can also do some sort of a hybrid arrangement whereby solar and wind and also storage, the battery backup, you can do it and then manage your load. Just for example, I'll share with you that it's not necessary that everyone in the morning should switch on the geyser at the same time, or everyone in the morning should switch on their washing machine at the same time. So you can stagger your utilization. So some of them can start their geyser at 4 o'clock in the morning, some at 5, some at 6. Similarly, your washing machines can be operated at 11, 12 when the peaking load is not there. So there are a whole lot of solutions which are there, and these Internet of Things, which today these equipment equipments are very intelligent and smart equipments which will be able to monitor and decide on the utilization of energy you can do.
So coming down to all of this, I think boils down to renewable and clean energy. And one of the things we really wanted to test out was, the audience attitudes towards clean energy. Everyone wants clean energy, but the question is, when it comes to paying a slight premium for clean energy, are people willing to do that? So, which is where we come to our second poll question. Shweta, if you can blare that up, basically what we want to ask is, are you willing to pay a small premium for electricity from clean sources like wind, solar? If so, by how much?
Test of pudding.
We have rapid polling on this.
While the poll is going on, Praveer, does Tata Power help? I mean, either technical or otherwise for such power entrepreneurs?
Yeah, we do help both the entrepreneurs as well as people who are going to be consumers of this sort of service. So we have a pan-India setup whereby we not only put these rooftop solar, but also give you an end-to-end solution. That means what is the capacity that you can put, whether your civil structure is good enough to support the capacity that you would like to put, what sort of financing you require, and if any financing support can be provided. And then, of course, you have to have a two-way meter, which will also ensure that how much you are consuming and how much you are giving to the grid. And then the AMC, the 5-year or 7-year AMC. So we do have very good solutions from Tata Power side. There are other players also. And I think this is a good solution where many of the consumers are looking to move to rooftop solar and become self-sufficient. And there is a good payback. I do know that you were asking me that what sort of payback is there. I think in 5 to 6 years, you have 100% payback of this. And thereafter, you get the power free of cost. So I think it's a win-win, and the life of these systems are nearly 25 years. So it's a very good system, very win-win situation. I think sooner than later, we'll have large number of people, communities going into this sort of solution. We've seen this happening in California. We've seen this happening in Germany, where people are virtually 100% of their energy utilization is through rooftop solar and storage. And so also it will happen in India.
And I think our poll results are also encouraging. I think 82% people have said that they are willing to pay a slight premium for clean energy. To be precise, 46% said they're willing to pay 10%, 21% say that they're willing to pay up to 15%, and 15% said that they're willing to pay up to 25%. Only 18% said that no, we will not pay a premium. So that's good news that at least people are opening up to bearing the little cost that we may need for clean energy.
Yeah, and especially in today's environment when people are working from home, it will make them self-sufficient to meet the requirement of energy. They don't have to travel to their office, and they become self.
Right. So coming down to innovations as well, I think this is one sector that's been at the heart of innovations, right? From Tesla and the amount of innovation that they're showing in the battery space to electric vehicles. I think so many completely future-facing innovations are happening in the power sector. Could you tell us a bit about your efforts in terms of innovations in this field? Also, we heard that Tata Power has its own incubation labs, and you funded close to 25 startups for different innovations. Could you tell a little bit more about these efforts?
Yeah, I think first of all, there is a huge amount of innovation that is happening in the power sector. This is for the first time in last 100 years, we are seeing a very different way in which energy can be produced, used, and monitored. And this was not there 100 years back when we had the energy was invented at that time or discovered at that time by Thomas Alva Edison. So I think the change that has happened is that today there is a better management of energy at the load end, and there are a whole lot of Internet of intelligent equipments which have come. There are a whole lot of smart equipments which have come, which are able to continuously on real-time basis able to monitor. Communication has become very, very affordable. You have these modems which can send signals on real-time basis. And that's where you are able to manage your load in a much, much better way. So there is no need now to keep on adding capacity, but more is in managing capacity that you have. And that's the change that we are seeing globally. This requires huge amount of work, both in the hardware and the software part of it, and the analytics part. And we are supporting through our Clean Energy Incubation Hub, which we have set up along with the Tata Trust, the Social Alpha, Departments of Science and Technology, and Tata Power, to support startups to come and do some research activities in these areas. This is also linked to the mission innovation, which is part of the European Union. And the objective is that we provide the proper ecosystem to the startups to carry out these research activities and also do the POCs along with us. So we do have large number of Indian companies. We also have some of the European companies and US companies working with us. And they are working in each of these areas. And let me share some examples. Sometime back, we wanted to develop what should be the electrification system for the country. How do we identify which areas in the country are electrified, which are not electrified, or partially electrified? What is the usage pattern? And along with some of the MIT students and the faculty in MIT and the Comilas University in Spain, we developed a tool which is known as a reference electrification model. And this tool was for using satellite imagery. Nearly 40,000 satellite images were used and the analytics was done. And based on that, now we have tools which not only can be used in India, but many parts of sub-Saharan Africa. Similarly, many of the other solutions that we are working on, whether it is on microgrids and how do we bring smart meters in that, or smart inverters, intelligent inverters, or bring in biomass solutions or biogas solutions. Many of these things are being developed in-house by people, by startups in India, and we are supporting them not only by giving them the opportunity to try at our locations, but also financial support is being provided. So I think there is great opportunity. Today, everything can be monitored. I can figure out at what time you have switched on your AC, gone off to sleep, or what time you have got up and switched off your AC, what time you have switched on your geyser, what time you have switched on your microwave and have a cup of tea or made a cup of coffee for yourself. So there are a whole lot of analytics that is being done, and signature analysis of each of these equipments can be done and figured out. And that will help us in advising you also as to how you should consume, because in few places, time of the day metering has happened, and the different hours of the day, there is a tariff which is different and higher. So in the peak time, typically the tariffs are very, very high. It's nearly 100% higher than the normal tariff. So how do you optimize your utilization so that you don't end up paying higher cost of electricity? So we always welcome anyone with a new solution, and new product, new application to come to us, and we will work with them to see that how that can be made successful and commercialized.
I'm sure there are a lot of entrepreneurs sitting in the audience. Is there a particular time when applications open up and when people can apply?
We do carry out this twice a year. But irrespective of that, the competition is done. If someone has a unique product, they can get in touch with our people. This lab is located in Delhi, and we'll be able to share the details of the lab and the concerned person over there, with whom they can get in touch, and we'll definitely support them if they have a good idea and an interesting idea.
That's very, very encouraging. That's very encouraging. Alok, next.
You know, on a lighter note, Praveer, you mentioned that you can figure out when we switched on the toaster and I had a toast, or switched on the AC to sleep, or took shower by switching on the geyser. I think that's like being James Bond within the power industry. Very scary, Praveer, a little bit. But before I go forward, do you think we have a time for one more poll question, or I skip the poll and just go straight to the question?
I think we can.
We can do the poll?
Yeah.
Okay, so here is the next poll question. When we talk of, okay, go ahead. By when do you think electric vehicles will be a reality in India? 2025, 2030, 2035, 2037? I think there is a mix-up in the question. So the question was, when do we get clean energy? I think there is a mix-up. Sorry, guys, read the question as, when do we think we will get clean energy in India? 2025, 2030, 2035, and 2037. So when do you think India will be free of carbon sources of energy? Please read the question as that and give us your answers, please. When do you think India will be free of carbon sources of energy? 25, 30, 35, or 37? Are we getting any answers, Sangram?
Yeah, quite a lot.
Yeah.
I think 75% have voted already. And most people feel that clean energy would be around the corner by 2025, 43%. 38% feel 2030 is the day. 13% feel it's 2035, and 7% feel it's 2037. Let's get the answers now from Praveer as to when should we expect non-carbon sources of energy to power us.
Okay, now I think that India is progressing very well in clean energy. In fact, it's just 10 years back that India came with a government plan that they would have so much capacity of clean energy. And right now, it's moving in that direction. It's still early days. We are much lower in terms of total generation capacity, and also in terms of energy that is being produced and used. We were targeting something like 20% by 2022. Hopefully, we should be by that time. India has also signed the Paris Treaty, as per which they have said that 40% will be there by 2030.
Thank you. So Praveer, I know we are running out of time, and we also want to field questions from the audience. But before we go there, just one last question. Do you see the current situation as an inflection point for the industry, especially the changes which are happening currently? And will the changes be similar both in India as well as globally, or will India lag behind, or India will be in line with whatever is happening globally?
I couldn't get it. Changes, inflection point for what?
For industry-wide changes in the power sector.
Yeah, I think in India it is happening, but there are a whole lot of government and policy-related issues and regulatory issues which are there, and many of those fundamental changes have not happened because it's not just government of India, but because the state governments have not. But nonetheless, there has been a movement in the right direction. The speed needs to be caught up. It is still going at a very, very slow pace. And I think your question that when will this country have no carbon emission generation? There are countries in the world which have taken a stand. There are some which have already gone ahead with this, Switzerland and Austria. There are some countries in the world who are having plans either by 2030. Germany is 2038. India, we don't have a plan. I think it's high time that India also very clearly articulated that maybe 2040 or 2050 we'll have no carbon generation. So I think the inflection point in terms of some of the new technologies is little slow in the country. The renewable capacity additions are happening, but we still have large number of coal-based generation. We cannot wish it away because India is a developing country and there is a cost attached to these some of these new technologies. So I think it will happen over a period of time. It's not going to happen on a knee-jerk basis. And I would say that 2030 would be a good timeline for many of these changes to happen in the country.
Wow, so 10 years.
Great. I think, Alok, so with that, we should let some of the questions from the audiences also reach Praveer. We've had a lot of audience asking questions. We've had
78 questions actually came to us, 278 of them.
So we've just bucketed them and we've handpicked a few because we also would like the live audience to ask a few questions. So the first one is coming from Mrinalini Kher. She's a social entrepreneur and she's asked, have you tried any innovative path-breaking models that you've adapted for the bottom of the pyramid? So what are the innovative models that you've adapted for the bottom of the pyramid in the country?
Excellent question. And this is something which is very close to me. I've been working on this area for last 4 years. And to reach out electricity to all, power to all, and to remove energy poverty, we have been working on a very new model or a specialized model, which is known as the microgrid model that we are implementing. This is being implemented in various villages in India, especially in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. And we have a target to reach 10,000 villages by 2025-27. So that's the timeline that we have. It's got little delayed because of COVID, but we are very much on track and we implement this. This is a unique model which whereby solar panels along with storage and biomass or biogas will supply electricity not only to the domestic consumers over there, but also to the industrial and commercial consumers. It will also help a lot of commercial activity over there, and thereby it will bring about the economic change that one is looking in these villages. We are supporting large number of entrepreneurs to set up economic activities relating to whether it is a flour mill or it is an oil expeller or it is a cold chain that they want to have for vegetables and fruits. So it's a comprehensive ecosystem that is being created in the villages. And the good thing is that this is self-sustainable. This is not money as a grant or as a donation. It's self-sustainable. If it becomes successful, it has an opportunity to scale up to maybe 50,000 or 100,000 villages, which I think will be a precursor to a huge amount of economic activity, as also ensuring that many of these migrant labor people who come from these villages will stay back in the villages and create employment opportunities for themselves.
I think nothing less can be expected from Tatas, right? Taking it down to the bottom of the pyramid.
That's right. That's right. Let me take the second question. And by the way, we should start looking at questions which are coming live also. I hope Shweta is doing that. So the second question, Praveer, comes from Girish Gurudi. He is a working professional. He's talking about, is there a possibility that localities are net zero or net positive energy, in energy, which means either an apartment or a small set of houses in a locality? Is it possible? And if it is possible, what is needed? Because most of the times we don't understand where the solution comes from, whom do we go to, what do we do?
Yeah, it is definitely possible to do that. And again, there is a cost attached to all these technologies, whereby one of the big things is that how do you reduce wastage? How do you optimize your resources? And how do you use it based on your requirement and not just because someone wants to switch on or utilize the energy? So I think there are solutions like this, and that has been implemented in various places. We have ourselves implemented in few locations, including the Rashtrapati Bhavan we implemented few years back. And there is an opportunity to provide this sort of solution. One of the areas, in fact, that I didn't mention, and it's still little early stage of development, is hydrogen. And how do you use hydrogen, and how do you have fuel cells and utilization? I think the type of research that is going on globally will possibly also help us to come with solutions on better utilization of hydrogen. And that is another opportunity where again, people, communities, buildings, societies can become net carbon neutral, and they need not actually have to depend for any outside energy.
Brilliant. So I think while we're going through questions, audience can start typing their questions if you have any. We still have a few more audience questions, but meanwhile, your questions can start coming in. We'll handpick some of them and Praveer can answer those. The next question comes from Vaibhav Jain. He's an entrepreneur. And his question is, should India think about manufacturing solar panels since a good amount of them are imported from China?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think again we need to look at two things. One is what is the technology available with us. If you go and set up a manufacturing facility with the technology which is available in the market, then I think you are good for only 2, 3, or maybe 5 years, because the technology has been changing in terms of. Secondly, the scale and the level of production which is there in China is phenomenal. No factory is there which is less than 5,000 megawatt. In India, there is no factory which is more than 1,000 megawatt, and the total of cell and modules that we manufacture is very, very small. Cell we manufacture just about 3,000, and modules is about 10,000. So I think we are in a different league altogether, or China is in a different league altogether compared to India. It will take a lot of time. And then we need to go back. So it's not just the cell and the module, but from where will you get the wafers? From where do you get the ingots? So the silicon ingots you need to get from some place. You need to have the mining capability of silicon. So I think you have to look at it at the full chain, and not just saying that I will create a manufacturing capability for cell or modules, and that would be good enough for us. So I think there is a lot of distance we need to cover. We need to be also pragmatic in terms of the technologies that we will have access to, and what sort of R&D that we would carry out. Because if we don't invest in that, whatever we are doing will have a very short life, and thereafter we will again be back to depending on someone else who's invested in that technology. So
Right.
we need to really look at it in totality rather than taking a knee-jerk reaction and saying this is what is required immediately.
Perfect. Perfect.
And
I
if
think
I can, sorry. Go ahead.
interesting questions. I think we have Rajan Vashni who has asked two questions. I'm going to pick up one of them. His question is, how can storage medium for stabilizing, increasing renewable power cost effectively, as well as in an environmentally friendly way? The options are, is it battery or green H2, taking into account the mining position in mining cobalt and lithium and the import content? Are you able to get what he's asking?
Yeah, I think right now battery storage is much more affordable. There are different battery technologies. It's not only the lithium ion. There are lead acid, advanced lead acid, sodium sulfate. So there are a whole lot of chemistries which are there. Liquid batteries are there. So there's a lot of research work that is going on. Similarly, there's a lot of research work going on in hydrogen. The inflection point, people tell me who are experts in hydrogen, will be only by 2030 when they will be able to supply us hydrogen breaking capacity and hydrogen technologies, which will be at the same affordable rate as of batteries. So I think we are still miles away from the hydrogen technology, but nonetheless, that's a very, very interesting area, and hopefully uh, we will get some good solutions in the next few years.
Okay. If we have more questions, Sangram, you have the access to that, but do you have any? Or
Yeah, a lot more. There are a lot more. I think one student is very keen to know what are plans of Tata Power for conducting campus recruitments this year. That's a good break from all the technical questions.
Okay, Praveer, you're caught.
Tell you that we did some 300 people recruitment last year, and they are coming on board. So we are going ahead with that. We'll continue to recruit because we are in growth phase, and we do need a good bench strength for the new uh, in, investments that we are making in renewable and distribution and some of the new businesses in EV and home automation and some of these technologies. So I think there is huge number of requirement of people, good people, but I think also the requirement profile is changing. We now need everyone who should have experience or understanding of data analytics and also should be savvy to understand some of these business analytics solutions.
Correct. So yes, recruitments are going to be on, but we just need to be a little better prepared, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one question I think which is staring both from whatever is coming in now and what we received while the registrations were on were from the startups. And there is a lot of questions coming in. What is that the startups can engage in on the software side of the technology, on the hardware side? And I think you spoke at one point in time about the entire supply chain. Where are the places where they can plug in, where they get support from Tata Power, as well it is good in a slightly shorter term and some in a slightly medium term. I mean, the startups aren't organizations who can invest very long term, but slightly shorter term, slightly medium term.
I think any area where they can help in clean energy solutions. And when we talk in India, clean energy also means clean energy and affordable solutions, which can be scaled up. I think we are open. There are still large number of areas that we could not do. And I will share a simple example with you that how difficult it was when we wanted to do a very, very simple product which we wanted to develop. Today everyone talks about energy efficient equipments. And one aspect of when we said energy access in villages was demand side management, that how do we provide consumers with very high efficiency bulbs. So instead of the earlier incandescent bulbs, now of course LED bulbs have come which are 7 watt and 9 watt. We also wanted a fan, which is nothing so unique. Everyone uses fan, but the normal fan uses 80 watt of energy. The best energy efficient fans in India were 50 watt. We were looking at something like between 20 to 25 or 30 watt. We could not get anyone in India to design a simple motor which can consume just 20 watt or 25 watt. We ended up in a lab in MIT, and there with some of the people over there, we under different conditions, we developed the fan, and today we have a 25 watt fan. Similarly, we wanted the cooling system in the villages, not the typical refrigerator, but a simple cooling system. We wanted the television in the villages where, again, the consumption of energy had to be optimized. Simple products, we struggled to get those products in India. Ended up somewhere in China to get that TV with 30 watt consumption. we couldn't get anything in India in that range. So I think there is huge opportunity. Similarly, when we were working on smart meters and which can do data analytics and load management, uh, we had a lot of people working in the country, and we could ultimately crack that solution. So I would suggest that both in the hardware as well as in the software, there are huge opportunities. It's important for people to be very focused and come up with solutions which not only are good but affordable and can be scaled up. And we will provide you the platform and the opportunity.
I think Amit Kumar wants to ask, what is the break-even point in general for a rooftop solar system in India?
It depends on the capacity, but between 3 to 5 years.
Amit Kochar has asked a pretty intricate question. I was going through the annual shareholder report and found out that Tata Power is focusing on microgrids, which research says will help in less energy dissipation and cost effectiveness. What's your take?
I had shared details of the microgrid, and this is a project that we are doing in the large number of villages in India, and we do feel that it will help in providing universal access of energy to many people in the rural parts of India.
So I must air this question for sure. This is Ashwin Sinha asking, if we are paying a 10 to 15% premium for electricity from renewable sources, what is the possibility of that being tax deductible?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I do hope that the government provides certain tax break. But right now, what we have seen in the initial phases, government was giving some sort of a capital subsidy. So 15 to 30% capital subsidy was being provided. So your initial investment was much less. Uh, we also find that in some of the new technology areas, government does provide some sort of subvention in interest rates also. So that's another way that the government in their own way. Uh, in case of electric vehicles, the government, of course, gives you a subsidy, capital subsidy, and there are no registration charges for electric vehicles. So, government in their own way has been supporting these type of initiatives. And I think today the renewable energy has become very cost effective on a like-to-like basis, and I think more and more consumers will move towards that.
Thank you.
I think there are a lot of questions coming from people on what are your efforts for electric vehicles and when do you think electric vehicles will become a concrete reality in India?
See, as an electric utility, our role is to ensure that we supply electricity to the electric vehicle, and we supply them wherever they want and whenever they want, and supply them at a very fast pace. No one should like to come and wait for 6 hours for charging your vehicle and things like that. So we have, as a utility, developed solutions which can be put in their home for home charging. It can be put in public spaces where it can be fast charging and slow charging. And it can also be put in their offices, or where you have fleet owners who have charging locations, or even bus depots where you have buses which can get charged. So all these solutions are there. There are three components of it. One is the charging equipment. The other is the flow of electrons, the flow of electricity, and how do you make the grid compatible for that. And the third is the consumer convenience in terms of what is the software which will tell them where to charge, uh, whether the charging is available, you want to block it over there, uh, what will be the cost if you charge now or if you charge in a different hour of the day. So all these solutions are right now there. Now, the challenge is that many of the automobile companies have been struggling to bring the electric vehicle. They already had ICE engines plants, and how do they disrupt that and bring electric vehicle. So I think there has been some delay, but the writing is very much on the wall. Uh, Maybe in next 2 3 years, you will see a large number of people going for electric vehicles. Once the number of vehicles that is offered to the consumers is high. Today, you just get one or two variants of the vehicle, and that also in different classes, whether it is in the passenger vehicle or SUVs or it is the sports vehicle. So typically, I think people are waiting for large number of vehicles to penetrate into the market, and once that happens, people will definitely buy more of electric vehicles.
I think we have space for maybe 2, 3 questions more.
That's
We're
right.
already at 11:10. There's one question from an attendee, but he's basically asking, why are we still latching on to coal as a major source of power, and when will we be coal free?
As I mentioned to you that coal today is still very affordable in India. There is a large capacity which is already set up. We do not have the luxury of that sort of money with us in our country where we can shut down all these plants and move into the newer sources of energy. So these plants will continue till such time their life of the plant is there, which typically is about 30 to 35 years for most of these coal-based plants. So maybe once they complete their life, they can be decommissioned. Similarly, new plants are not coming up. I don't see in last 3 years any big capacity coming up. So hopefully in next few years, we'll see much more traction in terms of people opting out of coal-based plants, and more of these renewable projects will happen. Of course, the big game in this is that how we get storage, because renewable, whether it is the wind, which is typically in afternoon and evening time, and the solar, which is in daytime, they are intermittent. You still require power which can be 24/7, and for that, storage is a very, very important and a critical aspect. So until and unless we get good storage capacities and affordable storage capacities, we will have a challenge in transitioning to 100% renewable. So there's still some work to be done. I think next 5 to 7 years, there'll be much better clarity and a timeline in which we can close down all coal plants.
Okay. We have one time for one last question. Alok, you want to pick that?
You go ahead. You
Okay.
go ahead. You want me to?
This comes from Shaligram. I'm Shaligram Soni from Green Energy Center, Champa, Chhattisgarh, state work for promotion of solar cooking drying technology for large scale utilization of solar thermal energy. No, I don't get the question per se. So I think he's trying to get in touch with you. So he's given his email ID. We'll pass it on to you. There is one last question about what happens about disposal of solar panels after it completes its life.
Yeah, like any of the electronic equipment where you need to have a safe disposal arrangement. Similarly, for solar panels also, you need to have a safe disposal plan. And all these biohazards have to be cleared up as per the plans that needs to be put in place, which is already there actually in place. So one has to treat it properly and before they are those are taken away. So I think this is one area where India has to still do a lot of work to ensure that there is a safe disposal of the solar panels. The earlier question was he talking about how do we have solar panels for cooking purpose? In fact,
Yeah.
one of the areas of research that I should have mentioned was how do we again use electricity for cooking. Today we have arranged gas supply LPG to consumers in villages. Can we again come with a smart solution? And we still are struggling to find, can we have a conveniently digest for cooking purpose. So that's another associated benefit that can also come.
And I think one last question which I had personally, and which was, I read a lot about Tesla investing in batteries, and there were ambitions of entire buildings going off the grid basis wall-mounted battery solutions. Is that a solution that's coming? Is that a solution that will come to India?
Yeah, definitely these type of solutions will come to India. There is a cost aspect attached to that, and once it becomes a little more affordable, uh, in fact, between 2010 and 2020, the cost of lithium-ion batteries and different chemistries in that have come down by nearly 80%. The cost of solar panels have come down by 75%. So there is huge amount of work that is going on. It's not just economies of scale, but also in technology. And hopefully in next few years, we'll have solutions where you can generate your own energy, you can meet your requirement, you can charge your electric vehicle, you don't have to run to a petrol station and fill up gas over there. So you will become self-sufficient, and that's the model that it is going to be, whereby consumers will have decentralized generation and they will become self-sufficient in their energy requirement.
So I think with this we should call it a close for the session. And Praveer, thank you very much. We had a power speaker, Praveer Sinha, who was talking on power, and I think I can call this as a lightning conversation because he showed us opportunities, and to be responsible. I think opportunities for the retail consumers who can be both consumers and producers, opportunities for the startup community, opportunities even for the larger industries. So I would say thank you very much, Praveer, for this session. I think I'm 100% sure all our viewers would have enjoyed that. Any last words from you, Sangram, before we wrap it up?
No, I would say I would really thank all the audience for giving us 1 hour of their Saturday for God's Glory and Story. So do stay tuned for COVID Tales, which will be released from Tuesday. Also, a little heads up on our next speaker. Next Saturday is going to be Deepak Bagla, who is the CEO of the Prime Minister's Make in India initiative. So do tune in for that session, same time on the coming Saturday. And with that, I would once again, from my side, thank Praveer, and on behalf of the audience, thank Praveer for taking out the time on this Saturday. We'd love for you to have a feedback on this session. The feedback forms have already come. You can vote and you can tell us how you love this session. And if there are any feedbacks on our social media handles, do give us feedback to improve and make this session even better. Yeah.
And while you're giving the feedback, do keep tracking our social media pages for the COVID Tales. The first of the tales will be released on Tuesday, the 18th. And we plan to do that every day, every alternate day. Let's wait for the feedback. Praveer, any last comments from your side? I think we enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you, Sangram and Alok, and happy Independence Day to all of you, all the people who had logged in. And stay safe and take care. This is tough time, but I'm sure we'll all come out of it much stronger.
Okay, we've got our feedback as well, and I guess we've got around 94% of the feedback between excellent and very good. So thank you very much, Praveer, for a great session. And with that, we shall say a bye-bye to our audience and hope to see you same time next week at 6 p.m. Thank you very much. Signing off.
Thank you. Thank you. That is it from our side from Guts, Glory and Story. Thank you, Praveer, again. Thank you to all our viewers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.